we actually flew out to meet with the Archdiocese of Orange County that is working on some capital campaign programs, so we can kind of share ideas on how we can create perpetual funding for them as well. That meeting went over yesterday. It was very quick for the church to recognize the power in the program, and we spend the majority of our time. We decided in the first 10 minutes that this was going to make sense. We spend the rest of the day figuring out the strategy of announcing it, implementing it, onboarding it, that kind of stuff. So I'll give you guys some insights of that as well. But let me give you some genesis on the program so that you can understand it, and feel free to ask any questions. I think this is going to be better if it's conversational. I worked on the Team USA advisory board for 23 and 24, and all through the Olympics and also through the World Championships. And my role in that capacity was to really bridge the relationship between between the nonprofit of Team USA, which is an entity in itself, and small businesses around the country that wanted to kind of tie in with that brand. And we're used to the big brands supporting these national teams, right? Home Depot, Visa, Bank of America, Coca-Cola, McDonald's. These are all brands that we've seen. And my goal was to try to bring in smaller businesses around the country that could maybe identify on a local level with certain athletes or certain teams, so that they could now feel connected to that mission. And what I realized through 23 and 24, unfortunately, and if we can just speak candidly on this call, is small businesses really didn't care so much about how the banks were relating to them, and the banks didn't really care so much about how small businesses operated as well. They saw that as a very disloyal relationship. A small business owner was only motivated at cost, expenses, minimizing abilities, and a business, understanding that there was no loyalty to that account, their job was to get as much money out of a small business while they could. That's kind of what I learned in that space. So I didn't like necessarily where that was going. And I also knew that that's been the way for the last 50 years. So I underwrote a program and took that to the banks. So I took an idea to Wells Fargo and Visa, and I'm about to show you a program that I wrote and got the banks to approve it. And then I got the IRS to approve it as well, in allowing us to participate in including nonprofits into the ecosystem. And I'm going to show you how that whole process works. But at a base level, I realized that almost 100% of our transactions right now, whether it be online or at a store or any kind of a service, is a digital form of payment. We're moving into a cashless society, whether it's debit card, credit card, Visa cards, MasterCards, American Express, all those kind of things. So businesses for years and years and years have been reliant on making sure they can accept digital payments. And that's been since the beginning of time. It's not a new concept. I don't have to educate a business owner on what that process looks like. They can probably educate me better on how that system works, because they've been using it for decades. However, it's always been a price war, which what they were programmed to do. So I'll give you an example. Cynthia comes in and she sets up my beauty salon with the ability for me to accept digital payments. Cynthia is going to charge me a service fee for that on behalf of the bank. I, as a business owner, understand that. So we negotiate, and Cynthia says, Butch, looks like we're going to charge you 3% as a service fee for every transaction you process. I understand that. So if somebody comes in and gets their hair done and spends $100, I, as a business owner, know that the bank is going to take their 3% for processing that $100, and they're going to give me the $97 tomorrow. It's been since the beginning of time, nothing new there. And then 6 months later, Valerie walks in and to my beauty salon, and she says, hey, what are you currently paying for your bank fees? And I say 3%. And Valerie says, oh, I can offer you 2.9. And I go, great. Cynthia's out, Valerie's in. And now I'm at 2.9 with Valerie. And that's my new relationship. 6 months after that, Charmaine walks in and says, hey, Butch, what are you currently paying for your bank fees? And I go, oh, it's 2.9. And Charmaine says, hey, we can offer you 2.8. And I go, great. Valerie's out, Charmaine's in. And that's just been the game that business owners and banks have been playing for decades. So two things happen. The bank knows my relationship with this beauty salon is only as long as they cannot find something cheaper. The beauty salon knows my relationship with the bank is only as long as I cannot find something cheaper. So it's always been about price. So I wrote a program and pitched it to Wells Fargo and US Bank, and then I got the IRS to approve on that. I'm going to share with you what that program looks. So I basically said, hey, beauty salon, if there was an ability for you to have an input on where those fees are going. Right now, you're used to paying that 3% or 2.9 in Valerie's case and 2.8 in Charmaine's case. You're used to paying those fees. But what if I told you that you could choose who gets those fees? What if I told you you could pick a nonprofit that you're passionate about, that you care about, that you want to make a difference in, and you can nominate that nonprofit to share in those fees that are currently being kept by the bank? That's what we underwrote. As long as the monies are collected here in the US with a US-based 501c3, we can proceed. Does that make sense? Okay, so we cannot tie in a nonprofit that has a foreign registration. That's the first rule that the IRS agreed to. The second rule the IRS agreed to is because the business owner, in the case here, the beauty salon, and let's just use the example of 3%. The beauty salon is already deducting the 3% expense for the service fees that the banks are charging them. So from that 3%, a portion is going to go to the 501c3. But the beauty salon does not get to further deduct what is being donated to the 501c3 because that would lead to double dipping. So they get to deduct the fees, but the donation to the 501c3 is actually coming from the bank, not from the beauty salon. The beauty salon gets recognition for it. They get credit for it in terms of praise and participation and support for the community, but they do not get to additionally deduct that donation because it's being already deducted in the grand scheme of their fees. Everybody understands this? Do I need to re-explain that? Perfect. Okay, so I'll give you an example right now. So in the case of the beauty salon, this is what they're used to. This is what they've been used to for 20 years, and this is what they understand. Let's just go back to the example. Cynthia set up my account. So the beauty salon understands this model. The model is this. Somebody comes in and cuts their hair and pays $100 for that. And they know, the business owner knows that 3% is going to be withheld by the bank. $97 gets put in my account the next morning, and I keep going on, and I've been doing this for 20 years. From that 3%, here's the 4 people right now that participate in that 3%. You have what's called interchange, and that's the network that is being used, that was created by Visa and MasterCard to create these international transactions in real time. So I can walk into the beauty salon in Washington, D.C., and I could be on vacation from Zimbabwe, and I walk in and I cut my hair and I pay the $100 with my credit card, and in real time, it knows to communicate with my bank in Zimbabwe to ask if I have enough room in that credit to be able to pay this $100 bill. The bank says yes, and the business owner just sees the word approved on it, and they know, great, the sale's done, have a nice day, and they get the $97 tomorrow. That entire network is called interchange, and that's a fee that needs to get paid by every retailer in the world. No one is exempt from this. Not Amazon, not Walmart, not Costco. Everybody has to pay the interchange fee if they're plugging into the network. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So yes, perfect. So then you also have what's called a sponsor bank. The sponsor bank is the administrative bank that is underwriting the account to some level to make sure that they do risk assessments, the KYCs, making sure that all the protocols are met, making sure the company is kosher, they're operating compliantly, and all of those kind of things. In our case, specifically, our sponsor banks are Wells Fargo or US Bank, depending on the type of vertical. These are the 2 banks that we currently are in partnership with to administer this program. The next person that participates in the fee structure is what's called the ISO office, which is the independent sales office. These are the businesses that are set up nationwide that are meant to train and officiate the account at a grassroots administrative level. Statements, customer service, underwriting, equipment, all those things that are needed at a logistical level is being handled by an ISO office. Lastly, you have the rep. In this case, it was Cynthia that knocked on the door of the beauty salon and said, "Hey, I'm here to help you process and accept credit card payments." So these are the four people that currently get paid in the mix. Everybody good with that? Can I move on? So what we were able to do was we were able to add to the same pie a nonprofit piece, and we were able to get the banks, the ISO office, and the sales rep to agree to take less of the fees to create an additional portion to go to a nonprofit. Now, why would the banks agree to this? Because the bank's idea is if the business is now tied into a nonprofit and they have this relationship, maybe the business now is more mission driven than they are price driven. So the bank sees it as we're okay taking less profit on the account because now we have a longer lifetime value of the customer. And they understand the value in that is greater than making sure that we can take as much money as we can until you move the account over. So back in the example, Cynthia comes in to my beauty salon, sets me up and at 3%, and I decide I want to nominate, I'm the business owner. Every day, somebody comes in and cuts their hair, gets their nails done, whatever the case might be. Every time they swipe a credit card, my church gets paid. So my church, if they're smart, and most churches are, they will do a few things to give me credit and recognition for that. They might announce my beauty salon in the bulletin. They might they might have a little flyer that comes up on the website on the church that says, "Hey, Butcher's Beauty Salon supports the church with every transaction. So if you go get your haircut there or your nails done or whatever the case might be, just so you know, it's inadvertently supporting the church as well." So the church might do things like that. They might send me notices and letters. They might give me a plaque to hang on the wall. There's going to be a sticker that we create for every nonprofit that gets that car sticker that goes on the front door that says every transaction here supports this particular church with the logo of the church on it. So hopefully the community awareness of my beauty salon and the church might give me some recognition, even some more customers or some pats on the back. And if I show up on Sunday at service, maybe they let me cut the coffee line or whatever the case might be. So all these things, now if Valerie walks in 6 months later and says, "Hey, Butch, what are you paying for your service fee?" And I say 3%. And Valerie says, "Hey, we can offer you 2.9." Or Charmaine says, "Hey, we can offer you 2.8." I'm going, "No, I'm actually good paying the 3%. You're going to save me 40 or 60 bucks a month. It's really not going to make a difference to my bottom line. And as a result of me working with the church or this particular nonprofit, I think I've probably gathered 60 more customers." So the idea of me saving 40, 30, 40 bucks a month that Valerie can provide, or another 30, 40 bucks a month that Charmaine can provide, now doesn't seem attractive. I just stay with that relationship. So that's why the banks agreed with this, and for this to make sense. Thumbs up if you got that. Perfect. So here's kind of how it works. The business has no choice but to pay this fee. They've been paying it since the beginning of time. We change where the money goes, and we gave control to the business owner in selecting a nonprofit of their choice. So there's two ways that we've rolled this out in the community. We have what's called a bottom up, going to the beauty salon and letting them choose a nonprofit of their choice, and we set them up for that. Or we've gone to the nonprofit and they've reached out to all the people that are currently writing them checks and said, "Hey, if you're a business owner, we have a passive way for you to be able to donate to our cause, at zero cost to the business owner. Why is that? Because we are not adding 1 penny of expense to the business owner. That beauty salon that was paying 3% before, they're going to pay 3% now. The only difference is the banks are going to take a little bit less of a cut to create another slice of the pie for the nonprofit. So the business owner has zero cost to select that nonprofit. The customer has zero cost. They still pay $100 for their haircut. The business owner still gets his $97 tomorrow. So we can redirect the money and give control to the business owner on where that money goes. And it's a very powerful program. So here's our service promise: price match to the penny, seamless transition behind the scenes, no disruption in operation, 100% transparent accounting, both to the business and also to the nonprofit, and then full recognition of donations. Our company would provide them with, and our banks will provide them with all the marketing devices and stuff like that. So we'll have things like this that they can paste in the door that says, hey, this business supports this particular nonprofit. So the customers would know that, the community would know that, and stuff like that. And outside of that, we're trying to run a mission that generates $25 million a year for nonprofits that participate in our program. Here's what we've learned. $25 million means we just gave the banks an opportunity to make $25 million less. Now, the banks are going to get credit for that donation because the donation to the nonprofit is going to come from the bank. And I guarantee you, they're not going to miss 25 million on their ledgers. It won't even show up as a line item. But for the nonprofit or the nonprofits, adding 25 million to their causes changes the dynamic of what they can do. So that's a program we put in place. I'm going to pause for a second. I've been going a mile a minute. I'm going to let you guys ask any questions. And then if it's okay with you, I'll show you what we're currently doing with a couple of churches. We may gather some what's called a merchant account statement, and they're familiar with that as well. And then we'll do an analysis on pricing to make sure that we can place their new account exactly the same pricing as their old account, and we'll do the migration. So in the case of you with the software company, they would still send out their invoicing. They can still use QuickBooks. They can still use all those things. The only difference now is what was going on behind the scenes could have been B of A. Now it's Wells Fargo, and they can still get deposited into any account that your company is set up with.